narrow runways, landing strips and gravel bars. Lots of emphasis is put into short strips, short takeoffs, short landings. But narrow landings can be as challenging and even more challenging. So it's something to be careful when going to a narrow strip. This is Zapotal in Costa Rica. The track where you touch down is narrow, but also there is some trees that are next to each other that makes the approach kind of tight. On takeoff you can see a couple of trees to the right, and they won't allow you to be off center. You have to keep your center after takeoff. This trip will be very challenging if there is a slight crosswind. Pavones in the Pacific coast is just like a 2-track lane that is twisty and land as slow as possible and in the center. This is Cangel airstrip in Guanacaste in Costa Rica. It's pretty narrow, the track very blunt, but also the trees are tight. So this is a tight approach that you don't want to do when it's windy. To keep it center, what I do is minor corrections with rudder and aileron and look towards the end of the strip. The trees are not too tall, so for the takeoff you are out of the trees really quick. This is a narrow path between trees to land in this narrow gravel bar in Washington State. The log towards the end of the gravel bar to the right side is what makes it narrow, so you have to touch down and land in between the log and the water. Sirene Station in Corcovado National Park. This is the king of narrow strips. It's just a track for the free tires and they are routed, so it's like a slot car. Once you get in the tracks, the airplane can be moving around, but it is risky if you get off the track. Here is a landing from the beach. At the beginning there is no rod, so you kind of touch down just before the rods and then you steer towards the rod and then you continue like a slot car. You can see in this shot towards the end when I'm braking and almost stop, one of the tires get off the root and it climbs to the left, so luckily it was very slow. Here is a view coming from the mountain. It's more challenging because it has big trees. and again you have to hit the roots right. This is the Indian community of Amubri on the Atlantic side, near the border with Panama. The grass opening is pretty wide, but the challenge is it's like an all-two track, but it's bumpy and you have to hit it about halfway down the street because the first half is pretty bumpy and not usable. This is the CJ-6 Nanshan military trainer taking off from Falls City in Washington. It is a very narrow airport and the nose of this airplane is big, so it's difficult to see. So I open the canopy and look from the sides. This one is a pretty challenging takeoff for this kind of airplane because the lack of view. You see how narrow it is. It is easier to land than to take off in this airport because it is towards uphill. If you land towards the east, it's the only way you can land. On the landing I touched down on the grass on purpose, so I'm slowed down for the pavement, which is uphill, so the visibility is not too bad. This is a gravel bar in the Skagit River, Washington. The beginning is not so narrow, but towards the end it is, so you have to kind of align it right to get it right all the way to the end. This also has a big area, but the touchdown is only like a 2-track. You have to hit it right in the center. This is in Washington in the Cascade Mountains.